Alrighty, so I get a lot of questions from guildies on best in slot rogue gear for pre-raid or even raid gear, and it usually ends up being kind of in depth. As you can see, I'm running mostly Shadowcraft right here, but I'm running a kind of a not super popular 3021, so I've got precision. So if you can hit the 9% hit for doing raids, I prefer the 6-piece Shadowcraft over Devil Soar. And while I was out here doing a couple quests and getting my Douse rep off these guys, I figured I'd show a couple minutes of combat to show you why I like that bonus. We've got Alliance guys around here I just killed, so they're probably watching me. You can see on the first fight, it procced twice. That one, we didn't get a proc. Oh, we stopped attacking. We got a proc there. So we're averaging like 1.5 procs a fight so far with the 6-piece Shadowcraft bonus. We need these guys for quest 2. We got a proc there. Accidentally sold my dagger and wasn't paying attention, so I don't have an ambush dagger at the moment. Can't make good use of Remorseless out here. I hate it when they die in this thing. And there was the guy we just killed. And I'm running Cripple and Deadly. That's what I used against that mage. Oh, what's that guy doing way out here? poisons really fuck up your regen, not being able to get a stealth opener. Slow down your grind big time. Ooh. Got us an Eye of Flame, huh? Why won't our bags open? There we go. There's a little gold boost. Oh, don't know. Get it. Ah, I got it before dot proc hit me. So there's kind of an example of that set working, just doing your regular grind out of stealth stuff. And so I'm running Shadowcraft, nothing too special. Need to turn in my other trinket. Then I'll have these two running. That's best in slot. Still Shadowcraft. I don't know if that is Onyxia hood and Night Slayer belt. So nothing over the top, not hard to get. And for my weapons, I hate Sword of Zeal. I can't stand that thing. It's so ugly. So I'm running a Skullforge Reaver and a Scarlet Chris. You can do the AV dagger here. Works just as good because of its proc. Went off right there. I need to buy a Crow Blade probably because the game hates me for raids. I can't get Viscag or Vitality to drop, and I can't even get a ZG run to get around the High Priest. Then I can run Crusader enchants. So generally, people ask me all the time or want to copy a build that kind of heals like a Fury Warrior. The only reason that I run lifesteals is because I don't have epic weapons. So I didn't want to splurge for the Crusader, as Crusader's attack power bonus obviously beats out lifesteal. They actually, because of their proc rates, heal about the same. But Crusader, if you can make use of the buff, because it affects your eviscerate and stuff, you'll get more damage out of it, especially since if you get lucky it can stack your offhand and your main hand. Crusader procs count as two separate buffs, so they'll stack on top of each other for 200 attack power. The only times that lifesteal beats them out is when you have a very fast weapon. You see both of these are relatively, that's fast for a SS main hand, and that's really fast for an offhand. And the reason that is because lifesteal is locked at a 6 procs per minute rate, and Crusader is locked at a 1.6. So if I put Crusader here, per se, to find percent for it to proc, you multiply your attack speed on the weapon by the procs per minute, and Crusader is 1.6, so 1.5 times 1.6, you have 2.4% chance that it procs. When it hits, misses, dodges, parries, all that, and dual wielding, you get a lot of that. So you'd see, you'd barely ever get anything off of Crusader proc on that weapon right there. Whereas lifesteal at 6 per minute is 9%. So you get a lot more procs off of it. So, like, I'm a big fan of fist weapons. I eventually want to use a couple of those. Those tend to generate, quicker weapons, lifesteal. The downside to lifesteal as well is, like, it's nice on the fast weapons because, like, this thing hits for so little. 57 to 77, a 30 damage proc increases your white damage, if you count it as that, a lot. But the big downside to lifesteal is you'll see as you get tier 2 raid gear and stuff like that, because of BWL, you have a lot of shadow resistance passively, and what damage is resisted on the lifesteal proc, you don't get back in life. So whatever damage it deals is how much life it heals. And each enchant has its own global cooldown of I think it's 0.5 or 1.5 seconds. But I've seen them both, each hand, proc right on top of each other, so they don't share a global cooldown, which is nice. Hopefully Crusader's that same way. I haven't ran it in a long time. But, if I can get my hands on a Viscag or a Brutality Blade, I'll go to Crusader. I'm not in a huge rush though, because a big part of me wants to grab the fist weapons out of ZG. I know hunters really like those, but run those two with the proc for 300 attack power with Crusader on it, so that it becomes possible to run a 500 attack power boost during a fight. And you see, that's why I don't mind using Skullforge Reaver, is because it has the same damage range for like what your SS damage would be as the fist weapon, the main hand fist weapon out of ZG. Well, there's an example of that. You don't always have to shoot for what's listed as best in slot. I keep my crit rates no lower than 20%. 25% as a Seal Fate Sinister Striker is ideally where I would be. And then this build stacks as many haste abilities as possible, as well as many strikes per energy, and the best efficiency for combo points per energy spent as well. So it's really good at proccing things. So as many procs, and then we'll throw our other Dark Moon card on there, as we can possibly get, the better it tends to perform. And then I'll make another short little combat video when the 5th of next month, when I can get the trinket, the other trinket, and we'll see if we can kind of get closer to the warrior burst damage. And maybe I'll do a PvP one. A lot of people ask me how the heroism card does in PvP. It's honestly way better than you would expect. You get a lot more survivability, but I think that's partially because of the build I'm running. But yeah, so the next little clip of combat, I'll make sure to show the other trinket and some PvP hopefully, and then quick recap of how I do this build. I've had a couple questions about that. Definitely not cookie cutter. So for our combats, anytime I run a combat quote spec that Sinister Strike spams, I always like to have either Riposte or Ghostly Strike. Neither one of them has the normalization. This doesn't get the crit bonus. Ghostly Strike can hit really hard if you build around it. But so you don't have to get these, but I mean, that's a haste adds to your survivability. That doesn't have the global cooldown for when you can cast it, so greatly increases your strikes per minute. And if someone's dumb enough to PvP without a weapon chain, they're done for. This is the only disarm that disarms both hands, by the way, so huge damage loss to them there. Improved gouge is, you can put these points over here, but it's really nice for soloing 60 elites and in 1v1 PvP, because the first time you do it, it isn't affected by diminishing returns, which is 18 seconds, by the way. Every time you do the same move twice to a PvP person within 18 seconds, the second effect is reduced by 50%. So our first time doing this, for 45 energy, we get 5.5 seconds of disorientation. So as you can see, you gain energy off of it. So really good for 1v1s. This is a godsend. Can't be rooted basically in PvP. So you're always on top of people. This helps with that, and stacking our Blade Fury and our evasion cooldowns are a lot closer. We get the survivability to really use that. These three are a must-have in assassination points. So is this and this. I believe improved slice and dice, that gains off of it are so big, you're dumb not to get it. With improved slice and dice, you can even make use of it in PvP by doing a 2-point and then call it off, because 2 points of it still gives you like 15 seconds, I believe. And murder, lots of people don't think that it's worth the 2 combo points, but a 2% overall damage increase is pretty big, to be honest, for 2 combo points. I mean, what else are you going to get out of here that's much better? And because we don't use backstab, we're not a dagger build, Remorseless is really, really nice to have for PvP and PvE, as that crit bonus lets us basically run around and ambush things when we're solo grinding. And in PvP, as you should get a lot of finishers doing your eviscerates and shit, you'll basically be able to just Sinister Strike, because we're Seal Fate, the next guy in the BG standing next to you fighting at the flag, and it's going to give you 2 combo points. More efficient even than running a cheap shot, so it lets you keep your point generation up and continue fighting. Cold Blood, Seal Fate. The other way I've ran this is to put 3 here, 3 into improved kidney shot, as it's 9% damage from all sources, and the 1 left over point, just 1 point in this. But I like this overall better, as I don't use kidney shot to great effect all too often. This comes in handy in more places, and with 2 points in it, I get a 60 to 65% chance to crit when I'm out here grinding on my ambush. As not having this, your ambush only hits for 200 less damage without those 5 combo points. And with Remorseless, it's just like we have improved ambush. So it's a 2-point opener because we're Seal Fate. 200 less damage, but because it isn't our usual main hand weapon, and we just macro it so that when we go into stealth, we equip the dagger, and then when we cast Sinister Strike or Riposte, we change our main hand back to whatever sword we want to use. We're allowed to poison it different. Instead of always having to run Cripple on your main hand, and for PvP, usually I run Wounding here, you can run Cripple on your ambush, or Instant Poison on your ambush dagger. So 20% of the time, it'll proc for 150 damage, closing that 200 less damage gap over what a regular dagger rogue would have, and so it basically hits for the same thing. Especially if you've got I need to buy the lobotomizer. Put the lobotomizer there. If that proc goes off, it'll usually crit for Usually it's around 400-ish. So, boom, boom, boom. And you can run, derp, derp. You can run +5 enchants there without, you get full benefit of all your enchants, pretty much. I did try sharpening stones for the extra +8 damage, but I saw so little gain that I actually liked running a poison there instead. I thought sharpening stones would be much better. A MC sharpening stone with a 2% crit might be kind of cool. I don't know. I have to experiment with that a little bit more. Sometimes, the only reason I keep mind-numbing poisons is sometimes I will actually, because in PvP, the only time I use ambush is against Clothies usually. And that's why you'll see down here we have a cold blood ambush and our regular ambush. And so it lets me use cold blood every time it's up. Makes better use of it in PvP. And against Clothies, again, is mostly where I use it. So I'll run mind numbing on it sometimes, as that kind of fucks up mages and priests pretty bad, as it takes a second, so you get the ambush hit and usually one regular white attack off. So you usually get to apply, if it's a 30% chance to apply poison, it almost always does. Like if you run cripple there, it'll always hit one cripple off or wound, but I like to run instant or mind numbing. It also lets you, the cheap shot counts as a strike. So if you have lobotomizer there again, you can proc the lobotomizer or the poison, the instant poison, when you cheap shot, which is kind of cool. And then if you do ambush, the way that I do it is I'll usually cold blood, because I'm not going to cold blood Evis for the first 5 points. And what I do is I cold blood ambush for 2 points, and then I immediately gouge them. Puts me at 3 points. Let it build up the energy, and you can Sinister Strike. If it crits, you're at 5 and Kidney Shot, or if it doesn't crit, you'll have the energy to do a second Sinister Strike. And the cool thing about that is if you do a cheap shot and then at 5 points do a Kidney Shot, the Kidney Shot gets a 50% reduction, becomes a 3-second stun, so you have 7 seconds of total stun. If you do an ambush opener and a disorient off the gouge and do a full 5-point Kidney Shot stuns for 6 seconds. So you get almost the same stun, but the extra, my lobotomizer ambushes were hitting, epically geared Clothies in PvP for just shy of 1200 without any extra proc damage or anything, so 1500 damage opener. Alright, pretty big deal. Until next time.